Welcome into another edition of Gold and Black Radio. I'm your host, Derek Schultz. We haven't yet seen the ashes from the game tape of Saturday's historic defeat at the hands of Notre Dame, but we can say, I think with relative certainty, that the Boilermakers are turning the page as quickly as possible, as are we, to this week's tricky road trip to Corvallis against an Oregon State team that, like Purdue, they're also coming off a demoralizing home loss to a rival. We'll get to all of that here in just a bit in a Tuesday edition of Gold and Black Radio. But first, a thank you to our sponsors, including Purdue Federal Credit Union, a proud partner of Purdue Athletics and the official credit card for Purdue fans. Boiler Up, East End Grill, and Ripple and Company, two distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street, the perfect place for your next event. And our friends at the Whitaker Inn. For unparalleled comfort and cuisine, visit the Whitaker Inn. Our buddy Tom Dienhart joins us now of goldenblack.com. And Tom, demoralizing, dehumanizing, probably a number of D words that you can use to describe that loss to the Irish. I guess the only glass half full thing we can say is it only counts as one loss, right? The last time I checked.
Yeah. Fill in the blank as far as your disappointment, the disappointing adverb you want to, or adjective you want to put on that game, Derek. 66-7, the worst loss in Purdue football history. Like you said, silver linings, my friend. I don't know. I guess if you squint your eyes and look real close, there were no big injuries, right? And like you said, Derek, it only counts as one loss. And somebody reminded me, you know what? Back in August, we thought Purdue was going to be 1-1 after 2 games. And you know what, Derek? They're 1-1 after 2 games. Although we got there in a little different fashion than we anticipated, of course. But yeah, if you're Purdue, Derek, you don't want last Saturday's result to beat you twice. And it's so hard in life, I don't care who you are, to put things in the rearview mirror, not dwell on them. But that's what Purdue's got to do, Derek. That was an epic defeat. Everybody saw it. And I couldn't watch the film if I was a player. I think I'd want to hide under the desk. But here's Oregon State, Derek, a great chance to get back on the proverbial horse and try to get a W.
Yeah, in hindsight, Tom, was not playing last week and having that early bye, was that a bad thing? Were they harmed by living in the 2-week bubble of the Indiana State blowout, or are we just going to have to give up and desperately trying to find an explanation for a 59-point defeat like that?
I just think, you're going to have to keep continuing looking for a reason, Derek. One of those days, and I know that's kind of a lame way to try to explain what happened on Saturday, but obviously Notre Dame knew what it wanted to do, saw where it wanted to attack on offense and attacked. And the Purdue offense, Derek, 3 and out, they could get nothing going at all. And just disappointing for the offensive line not to get a push a week after Northern Illinois had ran for 190 yards. So Hudson Card was running for his life. Mockabee couldn't get started. Receivers couldn't get separation. The offense was just really struggled, Derek. They didn't cross midfield until the third quarter. That's all you need to know right there. So, again, if you're Purdue, you just got to move on. And they're saying all the right things, right? We talked to Ryan Walters on Monday. We talked to Dylan Thieneman today. Cam Brown, the wide receiver. They're saying all the right things. They're going to correct the mistakes. They're going to learn from this. We'll see Saturday because it's, as you said, Derek, an Oregon State team coming off its own whooping that wants nothing more than to beat a Big Ten team on its home field.
Yeah, and you don't want to look too far ahead, but I guess us media types, we always do it. I'll go ahead and do it with Nebraska coming in as well, who looks very good. You'd hate to see this season struggle to even get off the runway because at 1-4 at that point, what are you playing for? You know what I mean, Tom? I mean that's how critical I think this game is coming up here in Corvallis.
Yeah, you go 1-2, then you lose to Nebraska 1-3. That would be a brutal September with games still to come against Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, Wisconsin. So the lifting's very heavy those last 2 months. That's why getting a good start in September was so critical. Here we are again, 1-1. We've circled this game. We've had this game at Oregon State in Corvallis circled in red for weeks. Some think it's a must-win game. It may sound silly to think a game in September is must-win, but for Purdue, this may be a must-win game. They're sort of in the same situation, Derek, that Notre Dame was last week, coming off a demoralizing loss at home where they got embarrassed. We saw how Notre Dame responded when it went on the road. Here's Purdue's chance. You know what, Derek? I think maybe going on the road, getting away from the cynics, getting away from the critics, may be just the best thing for this program right now.
Yeah, getting to the opposite side of the country. So you're as far in
Yeah.
Corvallis, you're as far away as possible. Talking about you here in Big Ten country. How interested are you to see how Ryan Walters handles this? Because we're still only 14 games in, but this feels like this could potentially be a reflection point several years down the line of this loss and how this particular season goes in the wake of it.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be one everybody's going to reflect back on, that Notre Dame loss and how or what direction the program goes from here, right? Very much a work in progress. We all understand what he walked into in 2023. We're very familiar with how he's tried to flip the roster, brought in a lot of new players, Derek. Over half this roster is his now. And there's a lot of work to do, but at some point you have to have results. And nobody really expected Purdue to win Saturday, right? Some did, but we were all realistic. But I think we all expected Purdue to be competitive. I thought this was going to be a game that at least went into the fourth quarter. Maybe Notre Dame won in the fourth quarter. But to be that non-competitive, to look that inept on both sides of the ball, it was just really disappointing for everybody. Media, whoever, fans, I'm sure were really disappointed. Anybody who watches this program was just stunned by the inability for Purdue to have traction in any real level on Saturday. So yeah, which direction is Purdue going to go here? And this is going to be a jumping off point that we're going to all look back on and say that's where the program started to take flight under Ryan Walters. This is where the program continued to go south.
And we're not just saying stunned from a Purdue perspective, Tom. I mean, that line, Vegas is Vegas, right? But that line got all the way down to, I think, 7 before the game started. Like, clearly the public was also thinking that Purdue was going to be competitive. And maybe that was more of a reflection of Notre Dame coming off the NIU loss. But clearly the public thought that Purdue was going to be more competitive in that game. And ultimately that wasn't the result. I had asked you this last week, if the NIU loss by Notre Dame had changed how you viewed the Purdue-Notre Dame game, and you shot that down. You said, no, the Notre Dame game is still the Notre Dame game. So I'll ask you about this loss for Purdue. Does it change the way you view the rest of the season or what's still ahead of the Boilermakers here, Tom?
Yeah, it does. I guess we still really don't know how good Notre Dame is, right? They won at Texas A&M, lost to NIU, won at Purdue. Gosh, to get beat by 59 points against a Notre Dame team that I think is good, Derek, top 25 caliber, but it's not great. It's not Ohio State. It's not Oregon. It's not Penn State. And again, to lose like that on your home field, packed house, so much on the line. Derek, 2 weeks to prepare a relatively healthy roster and to get beaten that thoroughly. My goodness. So, yeah, it's really, I think, reshaped how I'm looking at this team and how good it is. And Ryan Walters said it best. They just want to get back on the field and play again. And that's what you want to do when you have a bad effort, obviously. Get back out there, get the taste out of your mouth, and see if you can get back on course. And it'll get there before we know it, Derek. They're leaving early. They're going to leave on Thursday after they practice, going into Eugene. And it's going to be a packed house. I talked to a writer out there at the Corvallis Gazette-Times for our podcast later this week, and they expect a full crowd out there. And as I said earlier, here comes a Big Ten team. And Oregon State got left behind. They got ditched by all their Pac-10 buddies, them in Washington State. Last week, Wazoo beat the Huskies. Again, the Beavers would love nothing more than to smack around a Big Ten team that really blew up the conference that was their home for many, many years.
Yeah, from what I understand, Tom, it only seats like 35,000. So it's basically small. Half the size of Ross-Ade. But it kind of gives you that soccer stadium type feel, which could be a difficult road venue when, Northwestern, I think, with their new place is kind of trying to implement the same sort of thing. For a program like Oregon State, I think it makes sense to have maybe a little bit of a smaller, more intimate type atmosphere. Yeah,
it got renovated 2 years ago. It's a nice stadium. I've been out there for 2 or 3 games over the years. I've not been there since it's been redone. I'm eager to see it. Corvallis is a nice little town. Reminds me of West Lafayette a lot. Schools just aren't that big out west like we used to in the Big Ten. But again, they expect it to be sold out. It's supposed to be 75 degrees. And I tell you what, we're going to get much deeper into Oregon State later this week. But Oregon State, Derek, they like to run the football. They have a quarterback who can run the football. I think you know where I'm going with this. There aren't going to be many secrets with what Oregon State wants to do. Can Purdue stop it? And offensively, Derek, can this offensive line get a push, get the ground game established, and protect Hudson Card? So a lot of storylines for us to look at as this week continues.
Thanks so much for joining us here on Gold and Black Radio alongside Tom Dienhart. I'm Derek Schultz. I want to give a shout out to several more of our sponsors, including Sand Valley Resort. If you're heading to Camp Randall to see the Boilermakers take on Wisconsin on October 5th, you can sign up to win 4 tickets to the game, plus an overnight stay at Sand Valley, your new winter resort getaway, just an hour and a half from beautiful Madison. Visit sandvalleypursuits.com/Purdue giveaway to enter. And also don't forget, of course, to sign up to become a member for Tom's work and all the best Purdue coverage right here at goldandblack.com. Tom, I know Ryan Walters spoke yesterday. What's the latest on injuries and Purdue's overall health situation heading into Corvallis? I know you mentioned from the Notre Dame game, didn't appear to be any major areas of concern in that category.
Yeah, we kind of wondered why he kept all the starters in late, Derek. But anyway, I don't want to digress. Nobody got hurt, thankfully, late in that game, which was out of hand by the second half, but Hudson Card was still taking snaps. Don't expect C.J. Smith, the wide receiver, or cornerback Nyland Green to play. Green's still dealing with his foot injury, Derek. I sense he's closer to returning than C.J. Smith, who's dealing with a hamstring issue. Maybe I get the sense it may be a little while longer with C.J. Smith, the fastest player on the team. And one of the reserve tight ends, George Byrne, has a hamstring issue. I think he's doubtful. We'll see if he's able to get on the field or not. I think Purdue's okay. If Byrne doesn't play, they've got Max Clare and Drew Bibber. So by and large, they're in good shape. They didn't make any radical changes in the depth chart, Derek. They weren't going to panic. They weren't going to trash what they were doing schematically. They weren't going to make radical personnel changes. They shuffled a couple guys in the secondary in reserve roles. By and large, this lineup's going to be the same. Purdue's not going to change what it does. They think they can make adjustments to get this thing fixed. We shall see.
Yeah, we shall see. I mean, that's going to be the theme going into even Friday's show of how Purdue responds to this. But I am intrigued by the fact, Tom, that they're facing an opponent that is essentially coming off of the exact same thing. Yeah. Now, no, it wasn't 66 points, right? But to have Oregon come in to their stadium and rub their faces in it, I think a humbling loss for Oregon State, just like it was a humbling defeat for Purdue last Saturday.
Yeah, 49-14, the Civil War. You know the rivalry out there, boy. They really despise each other. So, yeah, tough for the Ducks to walk into your stadium and whip you like that. But there was no shock, right? I mean, Oregon's probably one of the top 5 teams in the country, Derek. I know they haven't looked good the first couple of weeks. Dylan Gabriel, my goodness, just talent galore in Eugene. So, Oregon's much better than Notre Dame. But again, you're right. Both these teams, the Beavs and the Boilers, sort of licking their wounds, eager for some success, 2 desperate teams. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really eager to get out there and watch this one.
I think it will be fun. I think if most Purdue fans had their druthers, it'd be Akron at home this weekend instead of a trip across the country to a Power 4 level opponent. But it's an intriguing matchup, no doubt about it, and we'll get heavily in-depth into that matchup, not only with Tom, but we'll welcome back Brian Newbert and Alan Karpick, of course, in our Gold and Black Radio Friday edition coming up later this week. Thanks so much to Tom, and thanks to Purdue Federal Credit Union, the official credit card for Purdue fans. East End Grill and Ripple & Company, 2 distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street in Lafayette. The Whitaker Inn, this Midwestern oasis, perfect for a relaxing staycation or a weekend getaway. Escape from the ordinary at the Whitaker Inn. And Sand Valley Resort, where you can sign up at sandvalleypursuits.com/Purdue giveaway to win free tickets to the October 5th battle at Camp Randall. Of course, don't forget to sign up and become a member right here at goldandblack.com. Tom, I'll see you Friday, and I'll see you in beautiful Oregon coming up here in a couple of days.
Always enjoy your company, Derek. Thank you, my friend.